Hello and welcome this lovely evening. It is time for another PMP versus show. Hopefully not a PMP versus shit show like last goddamn time. Boy, things were really out of whack. It may have seemed fine on the receiving end, but take it from me, things were shitty on my side. They're a lot more stable this time around. In fact, we got the visuals kicking in now, so anyone who is on the Plan Mix Play Discord can chat and be part of the visuals. I'm still planning to expand that experience quite a bit. I've done quite a lot of work, but none of it really on the front side of the interface. And also, the music went away, because that was the end of the backer track, so that's alright. We'll cue something up right away. But anyway, thanks for listening in, whether you actively clicked or maybe passively was listening to Slay Radio and then did not click away. I appreciate both. One obviously more than the other, but I'm not going to tell you which one. Oh, it's good to be here. I'm so tired. It's been... I'll get into that in a bit, but I think we should cue up a bit of music first. And I am taking requests if you want to do requests as well. That's slayradio.org. I see Testicles is in with a first little smiley, so we'll quote him on that. In the meantime, let's do a little bit of pop, jump and run, lame game C64 remix. I've not heard this particular track in a while. We're going to play that. Also, if things seem a little jittery, like if things seize for a sec, like maybe the visuals just don't, like they just stop, note that I'm running the broadcasting software in the so-called debug mode, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well, and why I'm doing this. But let's first just get to the first track, the first thing that we are actually going to play, which is Pop, Jump and Run, Lame Game C64 Remix. j, and run is how that went, I believe. I'm very good at when I listen, when I pay attention, nothing goes by my attention. So I think it was j and run. So good on Pop for doing that. Hoi, as I was relaying to HTK, and also hello to everyone. Hello to Testicles, Slagon, LP Chip, HTK as well, and Ziona, Wave. I don't have the webcam on. Also, I will not be turning the webcam on because it's so effing hot that I have removed, let's just say, up to and potentially including all acceptable, there's a certain layer of clothing that you must have to be socially acceptable, and I have perhaps crossed that boundary because it is so goddamn hot, wet, and moist in Berlin. And no, it's not because of some fun, Berlin stereotypical event that is occurring. It is simply because the weather is fucking awful. And yeah, LP Chip, hey, fucking go nuts. Be in your birthday suit. Live your best life is what I say. In fact, I'll even quote you on that. And sadly, no, HTK, there's nothing fun in the closet except clothes. Well, that's a half-truth, I suppose. Anyway, as I was relaying to HTK in the chat, and by the way, if you want to join us on Discord, you can, and then you can chat along. Do note that it is, of course, your chats will become a matter of public record. So if you do chat, it'll become part of the visuals, streaming on Twitch and YouTube, thanks to Slagon. And what I was saying was the show almost didn't happen because it's not hot, it's just humid, and also I am incredibly tired from yesterday. I think I've just had too much caffeine, and it comes down to my particular taste in sodas. And ever since I moved to Europe, specifically Germany, they have a cola here that I have a excessive weakness for called Afri-Cola. And for some reason that I've yet to comprehend, if you buy it in like a reasonable family/diabetes size, it has 100 grams, it has like extra caffeine in it. And I kind of wish that they sold a large bottle without the extra caffeine. But they don't. At least I've not been able to find it. So, yeah, I could either buy the small glass bottles, which admittedly are even nicer because it's cool and nice, but I don't fucking want to lug around glass bottles everywhere. That's for sickos. So instead I buy the big pack, and then it has a shit ton of caffeine in it, and I'm going to drink a little more, but I've set myself a mental deadline. You guys will have to help me here. Once we get to 9 o'clock, no more of that caffeine soda, because I don't want to have a shitty sleep. And also the fact that it's about a bazillion percentage signs humid here in Berlin may also have had something to do with it. Now then, another person who hasn't had a lot of sleep, as I understand it, or probably less than me, I've had sleep, but not great quality sleep. But Slagon, as I understand, has had none of it because, there is no rest for the wicked. That's the first thing we got to point out. And boy, let me tell you, Slagon, he's a wicked man. I won't get into why, because that's, again, legalities, contractual obligations, and all that. But take it from me, he gets very little rest. And what does that tell you about his wickedness? It's very high. But what I did hear directly from the source was he'd been at a good party, so what better song to sort of just commemorate this occasion where Slagon attended a party, which is Morty with Party of the Year Bonzax. And I don't know, is that the remixer? Is that the game it's from? Your guess is as good as mine, but let's listen in. And if Boz were here, I'm sure he'd tell you that the best bit of this song is the blip, bloop, bleep, blop part, which we can just all wholly agree is delightful in that song. So that was Morty Party of the Year, commemorating Slagon's attendance of a party, a rare occasion, as we all know. So we do need to highlight it. We need to bring a little bit of extra attention to that. Testicles asks if I've solved the flooding issue. So I know what to do. I would put it as that is a solved problem. I have not actively solved it, so please don't flood. But yes, it's not like it's I wouldn't say trivial, but it falls under the category of keep an eye on people's frequency of messages, and if they go above a certain rate, just cut them off for a bit. So yeah. And that's a nice little segue into what have I been doing. So I've had this idea of wanting... So I've done a lot of lyric alignment work with PMPVs Play. So what that means specifically is when I play music that has lyrics, I want the visuals to reflect that and tie that together. And we're not talking like cheapy, crappy karaoke, get drunk and look at a line of text slowly fill a red from left to right. I'm thinking more like words that are part of a landscape or somehow move in a cool way. And one of the things, this idea that I've had, is what I would refer to as a lyric sphere. So basically imagine all the words of a song being equally distributed on a ball, and then the ball/sphere will rotate to face the word to the camera, given whatever word is being sung. And I got to the point over the weekend of actually having a pretty solid demo of that working. Like, there's a lot of polish still to do, and again, so much work needs to be done until it's actually ready for a proper use in a show. But the concept is there, and even the simple prototype kind of showed me, hey, this is not only feasible, but actually looks pretty cool. So that is a thing I've been working on. And other than that, the whole way that PMPVs Play loads lyrics, all that has had a bit of a polish and a working over because I've had vestigial code. One of the frustrating things about working in software, I find, is that you're constantly iterating on designs because you make a first version and then you make another version that's a little more polished, a little easier to maintain, and just better overall written. And sometimes you will straight up replace the old version of something immediately. But in other cases, it makes more sense to write the new version of code kind of on the side and then swap over to it. And in many cases where I do this swap, I then forget to clean out the old gunk. And so I spent a lot of time this weekend cleaning out a lot of old gunk. Imagine me in rubber gloves in the bathroom and just fucking digging in the shower drain, because that's the code equivalent of that. Let's see here. LP Chip says something about good luck if LP Chip plays Traz. There's Japanese lyrics in Traz. Okay. I mean, the machine learning model that aligns lyrics, I don't think does anything more than basically English. So yeah, that wouldn't work anyway if it has Japanese in it, sadly. All right, and speaking of LP Chip, he had a request. He had a couple of requests, and I've chosen the second one, which was a bit of Slagon with Platoon in explicit. Well, he has wrote an inexplicit belly, which I like. It's a fun little quip, but it's actually inexperty belly, and we'll take a listen to that. How about right now? I mean, literally, this could be a vocalized song. Obviously, I feel like 2 times in a row I've leaned on this shtick where I clearly can do the song with my mouth, which I cannot. But it's okay. It's a better flow this time than the last show. Like, I felt proper frazzled coming into last week's show. This time I'm a bit more on point, knowing what I'm doing. And speaking of knowing what I am doing, there is speculation that Slagon has fallen asleep. I have it on good authority that he hasn't, but that's no excuse to not play something that might wake him up if he's starting to doze off. And I figure a real nice dose of Blastinox with Crack Out the Blastinox remix ought to fucking do it. now there's a fucking tune for you. If that doesn't wake Slagon up, nothing will, basically. And to those wondering, and maybe on a second listen of this show, as if that's ever actually happening, but just in case someone's looking at the chat and going, what the hell are these weird digit numbery things that Testicles is writing? Well, they're GIFs, and the Commodore 64 could not display or render GIFs. And never mind about the fact that it also didn't do widescreen. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about the fact that it can't do GIFs, alright? So that's why those numbers are weird. And also, I forgot to thank LP Chip for his request, which was the Slagon platoon in explicit, inexpert, intolerant, incontinent belly. So thank you for that, LP Chip. What we haven't had in a while is a little bit of Mackay, and I've been wanting to play this short song of his for just a bit. It's Madballs with You Told Me They Were Vitamins mix.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Madballs!
Be a short intermission.
Albatross! 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 Course you don't get bloody wafers with it! Sid in the morning.
That's, look, not to dunk on Mackay, because I'm sure he doesn't deserve it, but one thing I always love is, and I put myself in this group, so get ready, the people I'm about to dunk on include myself. It's the attempt to make a low, raspy voice when you just don't have the vocal cords to do that. And so when I hear Mackie go, I love the sound of Sid in the morning, I'm like, you see, Boz, he can pull that off. He has like the bass voice, but I do not. The best I can do is like fucking Dr. Mad from Gadget, right? So he goes, next time, Gadget. Something like that, but like proper low trailer voice, I suppose, is the thing. It's just, it's not happening, and I always find it fun to hear other people attempt the same thing. So sorry, Mac, if you are, again, odds of you hearing this are low. So, but I apologize anyway. I'm happy to hash it out in person if that should ever be a thing. LP Chip has made another request, a song I've not heard before. This is Metal with Beat Bassie, the Sofa remix. So I've lined that up. But before we get to that, I wanted to just talk a little bit about why the visuals may be a little jank or may lock up. Part of the reason is because the last time I did a show, we got to the end of the show, and I got to the credits rendering section, and the program crashed. And this was not a complete surprise to me, because what makes it a little tricky with the credits are, to test them properly, I basically would have to simulate what an audience does during a show. And this is not completely, I guess, impossible. Mostly consists of activating triggers, sending chat messages, and when it comes to Testicles, apparently deciding to post nothing but GIFs, which, for the record, Testicles does nothing for people who see the YouTube or video stream. But, you know, have at it. You do you. But I had to simulate all that, and I haven't had the time to do that properly. And so the program crashed at the end because some unexpected stuff happened, and I'm kind of half expecting it to do it again this time. But if I run the program in debug mode, I can get a pretty immediate big finger pointing at the problem. And that's kind of what it all comes down to. If I run the software in this debugging mode, when it goes under, I will get a big red sign with a flashing arrow pointing at the problem, and that's what we're going for here. But that's enough about that. I want to talk about the Euro Cup, and I want to talk a little bit about politics. So if any of that is of interest to you, stick around. And if it's not, still, because I beg you, I need attention. I'm very insecure. You should keep listening, because like, comment, and subscribe. And also join my Patreon. This is Metal with Beat Bassy.
Feel it. Yeah, I like this one. Sound good to me. Yeah. Check it out, man.
like that. If it wasn't for the fact that we're, of course, risking putting Slagon and Ziona to sleep. Because Ziona, well, from one request to the next, let's wrap this one up with a bow by saying thank you, LP Chip. Appreciate the request. And over to another request from Ziona, who says, "Hi Gazoo, so nice to hear you again. While both me and Slagon are dead tired, I'd like to wreck a song that might remind us of this weekend. Our good friend Hermit was shocked when he figured out that his Sid has been remixed by Berserk, so the request is Fun Tempo. Thanks a lot." And, well, thanks to you too for requesting the song. I have not heard Fun Tempo by Berserk. And Berserk, he does some effing solid work. So why don't we line that up right away? Take it away, Berserk, with his version of Fun Tempo. Thought something had broken, didn't you? Well, actually, no, probably not. I should wait a little longer for that. But people are giving some well-deserved props to Hermit, as I understand it, because he really knows how to play that Sid chip like nobody's business, and that's very nice to hear. So thank you for requesting that remix, Ziona. Very nice, very nice, very nice. Ha, Eurocup, politics, which one to begin with? They're both fucking shit show. No, the Eurocup is not. Politics are a shit show, and when I say shit show, I mostly mean the U.S. politics, because maybe we take that one because it's short. I have seen some excerpts from the CNN debate, and I would sadly come away from that thinking, I understand why you look at Biden when he performs this poorly and have serious doubts about his cognitive abilities. On the other hand, the other guy is a goddamn fascist and wants to actually topple democracy. So, I don't know. I would ultimately still vote for an incompetent boob. Like, literally Bozo the clown who won't overthrow the government is a better candidate than the actual Bozo the clown who, I guess, almost loudly pronounces he will. Because he also won't... every time Mr. T has been asked on the question of will you accept the outcome of the election, it's he either dodges or he couches it by saying if it's fair and like legal. And that's like, okay, so no then, because if you don't, as in if you win, it was legit and there was no cheating. But if the Democrats win, then there was cheating effectively. I'm not sure I want to live on this planet anymore. But sadly, it's the only planet that has this extra caffeine cola, which I will have another glass of. And in the meantime, I'm going to play us a little bit of Yorjeli Yedal with his hardcore Hubbard mix. I do like this kind of medley of a lot of shit thrown together. So, Mr. Liljedal, take it away from us. Snälla. Ah, that was a nice bit of your Yali doll there. And Slagon, you touch on a point. I hadn't really thought about the fact that yes, of course there will be more debates, and he needs to look good. I remember when he debated the vice when Obama was running, and he was up against, I forget his name. I think his first name is Ryan something. And I mean, admittedly, this is a decade ago, right? And 70s versus 80s is quite a shift. But yeah, I remember him in that debate, and he came off well, and he came off good, and he countered really a lot of shit that this, really, really young Republican had to say. I remember one of his statements especially was something like, "This is a bunch of stuff," he said, and then the moderator stepped in and was like, "Excuse me, Mr. Vice President, like what do you mean by a bunch of stuff? What does that mean?" And he, of course, clarified, saying that it's basically nonsense. And Gohanks, of course, welcome along. First of all, good to see you. Great to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. I think you make a good point that it is sad that they have no one to promote, and I also agree with Slagon, who says that there aren't that many options. And I think it's also, once you have been a vice president, you can ride the coattail of, I have done most of the job before, so I am most primed to do it again. And I agree, like, I don't know if they have a more, I don't think they have a stronger opponent against Trump, sadly. Same as I also think the Republican Party sadly needs someone else. Like, they both need new candidates. They're both bad. One just profoundly more so than the other. But hey, there we are. Hey, yeah, there's not really much to say. I want to watch the whole thing at some point, but the excerpts I have seen is disappointing. Which brings us to the Euro Cup, which of course was also a big disappointment to me personally the other day, as Denmark got booted by Germany. But let's be fair, Germany was the better team. The match started really aggressively. Denmark didn't really get a foot to the ground until about 10-15 minutes in, and then for the next 30-40 minutes, it was it was a bit of back and forth. There were some real good opportunities that they did not capitalize on, in the same way that Germany also did not capitalize on a couple of really good opportunities, and then a penalty kick, thanks to touch of the hand by a Danish football player, and that's sad, because I don't think that hand legitimately changed much in the match, but hey, rules are rules. And that's the other thing that's become kind of obvious, is that soccer has shifted a lot towards much more, technological evaluations of things, because you see offside now being called with, like, the tip of your toe being past another player. And maybe what it should be is, like, the center body mass more than the tip of your toe. I don't know. Who knows? But I thought it was fun to see nonetheless. In fact, the game even got paused due to terrible weather conditions here. But Denmark got booted. Not really a big shocker. And now it's time to see if Germany can pull through as the host. Anyway, I'm going to play some Michael with the Samurai Warrior Usagi mix. I wonder if it should actually be Usagi Yimbo, because that is, of course, the full name of the rabbit in said game. But I don't know. Let's just take it away with Michael's remix. And that was a bit of Michael with Usagi, mix of Samurai Warrior. We're talking a bit about politics, and if Donald Trump gets his way and expands the terms, Testicles says he'll go 20 minutes north to Canada first. Yeah, I don't blame you. But on the other hand, another thing happened as of late, which was that apparently the Supreme Court in the U.S. ruled that obstructing a political process as defined, I don't know if it was in the Constitution or just some other law document, did not mean a physical obstruction. Basically, a way for them to railroad a lot of the suits going against people on January 6th. And, I mean, I presume you could still get them for other things, like, I don't know, trespassing or, I don't know, mob violence in general. But a lot of them have basically been, they had been, what's the right word? Not sued, but they had been like accused of breaking this particular law, and the government had basically started a case against a lot of these January 6ers, and the law that they broke, as was cited, was like the obstruction of a political process, which I think is pretty accurate. And to me, unless the Supreme Court, unless there's an alternate law that they can break, which is similarly offensive, I feel the punishment should be harsher than just trespassing, because that's fucking not enough. Like, these people who storm a government building when things don't go their way should somehow be penalized by a democratic system we have in place. It's a weird, yes, go Hanks. I also am like, okay, why does physical obstruction not count? But hey, who the F knows? And Testicles points out riot laws. Yeah, I'm sure there's some other stuff there as well. I mean, another thing about the Supreme Court was they also severely weakened some, I believe, a collection of corruption laws, which was about what they had to declare in terms of gifts they were given, that now that has been dismantled to some degree. And I mean, after you've heard, was it Judge Clarence or something? There was a black guy on the Supreme Court who seems to be overwhelmingly gifted, and not in terms of gifted as a smart man, but more like big-gifted. I'm sure he would love those anti-corruption laws to be a bit weaker for his sake. Let's not think too much about that. Let's take another request. LP Chip, you wanted Moog with Jazz Cat. I hope it's the 007 version you want, because that's the one I have lined up for you. We'll listen to that and take our mind off things for just a little bit.
I've been asking for you all morning. Where in the world are you, Jay?
Well, I've just been reviewing an old case.
Oh, so I'm an old case now, am I?
The office. Tell him on the way, will you?
He is not on his way.
Yeah, behave. We'll do it again some other time soon.
Do what? Last time you said that, you went off to Jamaica. Seen you for 6 months.
I'll be there now.
Hey, you're okay.
I just need to catch my breath there for a second. We've reached the half point of the show, and I am deeply disappointed that no one has reminded me not to drink my soda. It's like if I cannot abuse my audience to be my own personal timers, then what the hell am I doing, right? Like, geez, it's not as if I have some sort of app or real device, alarm clock or anything that I can. God, that's a great time for a siren to go by outside, isn't it? No, I understand. It's because you guys want me to drink more soda, and I agree. Actually, I will drink the last of what I have in the glass, and then we'll go on from there. And I'm sure everyone was thinking to say something, right? That's the main thing. Moo Sebastian Bachlinski with Jazzcat, requested by LP Chip, appreciated. We're gonna move right on with Hazel, the Last Ninja, the Wilderness version. But before we do, Slagon, you mentioned that the market isn't worried about the debate. No, I guess I'm like, I don't see either candidate winning shifting much in terms of like stocks, honestly, because neither of them, I think, want to really. I don't think anyone is talking about. They're all so hesitant when it comes to changing things significantly when it comes to taxes and stocks, and I don't know. I mean, again, it's also, I'm definitely not a good political pundit. I know a fraction of stuff, and I really should just, I guess, keep my comments to a minimum. But let us help each other by playing the song together, because that's what streamers do. We're doing things together. We're doing a let's play together. We beat the boss together. We did it. We are playing the song. It is Hazel with The Last Ninja, The Wilderness. Take it away, Hazel.
Listen, Buzz, it's just different. Like nothing I've ever seen. I've had plenty of experience in this. I'll be on my guard. Let's fight this out up on the hill there. But let's skip the formalities.
And that was Hazel with The Last Ninja. Politics. It's I do think it's an interesting, this trickle-down economics thing, which I think you even mentioned this, Slagon, was from the Reagan era, I think. Yeah, exactly, the Reagan era, which, as I understand, there have been studies on showing that, yeah, that's a load of BS, sadly. And the reason I'm very inclined to believe those studies is because I would assign similar behavior as myself to the rich, and if someone gave me a tax cut where suddenly, let's just say, half of the taxes I pay now weren't paid, I don't imagine that I would immediately run out and splurge that share that I now got on a bunch of stuff. Like, this isn't how humans are put together. If you let them have more, Testicles, you also chime in here, exactly, Reaganomics. If you give people more stuff and they already have more than enough, so you're basically giving them disposable income, unless they are already spending all of their money, this new amount is not going to add on top of that. Again, except if they are spending all of it, because then you've just made the amount they spend bigger. Like, I think it's a much more fair, even if overly simplistic, assessment to say if they spend X percent of their disposable income, they will continue to spend X percent. And sure, maybe a piece of that will be what they get back, but probably not, because people have the types of luxuries that they like, and the clothing and the cars, and we don't just magically suddenly come up with a new vice to splurge on if we have a bit more money. At least I do not buy that. Yeah, exactly. You said it. It's like on Rageonomics. And that is another thing that always really stuns me. But I guess it's the classic case of wanting to have your cake and eat it too, is that taxes, I feel, are nowhere are they more loathed, seemingly, than in the U.S. And the Republicans have done a really good job of making sure that socialism sounds like it's almost communism. And we certainly don't want that. Like, people are dying in the U.S. from terrible, terrible Medicare and just basically trying to stay healthy if they have some sort of real malady, but the whole system is also rigged to make sure that if you have any crazy costs and you're not covered by healthcare from your job, well, then you're on your own. And that's, I don't know, I do not prefer that personally, but of course I'm also very, very red-leaning, being a Danish individual myself. I think we should take a bit of DAX, to be honest. And I just spotted this, is it pronounced Sanction? Sanction? Xion? Big Room Instrumental. But before we do that, yeah, go Hanks. I'm hearing the same thing. I mean, we've talked about this before, that in Poland, the right-wingers are growing. And it's Snaxion. Sanction? Sanctions. Economic sanctions, big room instrumental mix by DAX. Yeah, it's the same thing here in Germany, right? The AfD is also a bunch of right-wing talking points, all washed. And that's the funny... It's kind of funny and kind of sad, but most politicians, even outside of Germany, but especially in Germany, know that you don't want to be compared to Nazis. So instead, we just change the words a little bit so we don't sound like the Nazis, but basically have the exact same opinion that anyone with skin color slightly darker than white can't necessarily be trusted and needs to be corralled and controlled and all that. Fucking BS. It's pretty terrible. Anyway, let's listen to a little bit of Sanction, Big Room Instrumental. I do appreciate that has this like, yeah, that has a bit of a hi-hat ending. I suppose it just echoes out, which is kind of nice. This whole. So a couple things. First of all, GoHanks asks if the response you got quoted has some purpose you're unaware of. I mean, it depends on whether or not you're aware of when Plamix Play tells you you've been quoted, that your quote will show up at the end of the show as part of the credits. It has no function apart from that, but if you did not know that this is what that means, then that is what that means. Oh boy, I just sneezed like 6 times in a row. The temperatures are finally dropping. It's 25 degrees here, but it's going to go down to 20 again, thank God, which I've been much looking towards. Another thing I wanted to build on was a comment that you made, Slagon, which was you wrote that your current opinion on the right versus left was that left can actually articulate the problem and suggest potential solutions, while the right create bogeymen out of anything people want to fear, yet offer no solutions except to quote-unquote get rid of them. I'd say in general I agree with that perception. The thing that I think is sad is Trump and his associates, I think, have taught the Republican Party that you can just lie through your teeth, and that's okay with most of your base. And I mean, this is the whole reason why creating these boogeymen works as well as it does. And what I think is all the crazier, sadly, is it also plays straight into the hands of people who are shitty but don't want to feel shitty. Like this growth of victimization, like the fact that insane clown asshats like Alex Jones have this idea and spread this gladly, like the great replacement theory, where white people are actually the ones who are oppressed, and you shouldn't feel bad for having white skin because all the boogie people are out to get you. And it's incredibly frustrating to see that. I mean, I get that that's not the majority of right-wing conservatives, I'd say, but to see that it speaks to a certain core that rather than, how can I say, it's shocking that it's more comfortable for these individuals to lie to themselves or buy into a lie. And all it really takes is someone of some public prominence to tell them. Like, never mind trying to fact check or even read up on it just a tiny bit. But of course, Alex Jones is also the craziest of everyone. Like, if you believe half of what he says, or even just like a fucking 100th of what he says, you are kind of a goner already, because he lies so incredibly frequently and so incredibly awesomely. Then yeah. And Slagon chips in and says they easily buy into it because they're primed to believe it. Yeah, and also because it's more comfortable, right? Like, I think this is something I've learned with age, is that people will tend to believe what is comfortable. And if you see the world in a certain way, for example, that Republicans and I guess conservatives are right, then it feels better that the left actually wants to eat babies and are demons. Because if instead you're just taking away, say, abortion rights from women who perhaps should have some sort of autonomy over their bodies, that does not feel as good. It feels much better if we can villainize the opposition. But this is also the thing of, like, it takes very little effort to check up on the fact that the actual abortion laws that Democrats are pushing for are not killing babies, which is something Alex Jones, for example, purports, and some other people do. Even, I believe, even Trump himself goes to that point, because it's one of the talking points that Republicans have a very difficult time dealing with, because most people, and I do mean that as in just more than 50%, even in America, seem to be pro-abortion, and so they have to villainize the opposition there and say, oh, but if they had their way, they basically abort babies that already came out of the womb, which is, of course, absolute horseshit. But hey. Let's hit a quick pause and play some music. LP Chip, you requested something by Macke, and we've only had one of his songs, so let's play Forbidden Forest Spider Surfin'. very long song, but it is a very good song. Macchie with Forbidden Forest, thank you for requesting that LP chip. And I also wanted to touch upon briefly what Gohank said, which is, quote unquote, validation is important for simpletons. That means they don't have to bother. I'm not quite sure what you mean with the second bit, but I do agree that validation is something we all crave. And it reminds me of something else. I wish I remember who this was, but there's a YouTube dude who does like logic reasoning. I think I've since learned that he had some views I didn't quite really love, but he's always standing and kind of takes it upon himself to debate or discuss a lot of people. And I really don't remember much more about him. So again, that of course narrows it quite a lot down, right? Someone who likes to debate and stands. Who could that be? But he did at some point have a chat with a flat earther. And what I thought was interesting in that debate was the guy highlighted also Slagan-ass street epistemologist or something. But he was standing in a little room, like he wasn't out on the street talking to people. People basically called into his show. But what I liked about his one show with his flat earther he talked about was, and I hadn't really thought too much about this myself, was that he highlighted that one of the reasons flat earthers or people can gravitate to flat earth was he started asking this dude who had become completely convinced that the earth was flat and there was a giant conspiracy. He asked him a bit about, well, what do you do? What's your work like? You know, are you in a relationship? A couple of things. And he did, for example, ask, like, you know, now that you believe this stuff, now that you have this perspective on the world, what do you think that might do to your relationship prospects? And luckily the guy wasn't so far gone that he couldn't kind of put two and two together and say, well, I get that would probably make things difficult because most people do not believe in what I now believe in, and I'd probably be shunned to some degree or something. And then the debater kind of more and more heavily leaned into trying to convince this dude that one of the reasons he was so into this was because his life was generally quite mundane. And if the actual truth were that the planet were flat and there was a giant conspiracy and now was the time to save everyone and convince everyone, and everyone had wool pulled over their eyes, his life gained a massive amount of significance all of a sudden, right? Because now he wasn't just a grocery bagger at fucking Bag End. Yes, he lives in Middle Earth, by the way. He wasn't just like a grocery bagger that didn't have any deeper purpose. He now had like a real depth of purpose in life, and he knew something almost nobody else knew, and that made him special, and that made him important. And I definitely buy into that theory as for certain people who wholesale buy into flat earth, because again, it gives you some sort of purpose, some sort of deeper meaning. And now you're special. And before you were just kind of a nobody living your life like the rest of us. But now all of a sudden you're no longer a nobody. You're like this crusader for justice in a way. Even Scientology taps into this idea. They are like, you need to save the planet and you got to help us. You know, you're either on board or you're against us. And while Flat Earth doesn't quite have that, it certainly benefits from it. Because it's, again, it's such a weird idea. It reminds me of something else. Also, I appreciate people chiming in with a few possible people who this could be. I don't quite have the the wherewithal to look these people up right away. But it could be any of the ones people wrote up. I just thought of the fact that I have not played an Outrun remix, and we need to play one. So here is Peter W's Outrun the No Speed Limit remix. And that was a little bit of Peter W. with Outrun, the No Speed Limit remix. Oh, it's been... I have such a weak spot for Outrun, and there's a pretty solid modern take on Outrun called, I think it's Horizon Chase. And I got so bummed out when I saw that the second Horizon Chase was, for at least a time, a PlayStation exclusive. It is out for PC now, but kind of in classic fashion, like now that it's been announced and there was a trailer, but I couldn't buy it right when it came out, now I'm already over in the corner of like, I guess I will, I guess I'll buy it when it goes on sale or something. I don't know. But I enjoyed it. Like, if you like sort of, I mean, of course it's a modern game, so it uses a proper 3D engine, but it's very, the road doesn't behave at all like a proper road, or the car, I suppose, doesn't behave like a proper car on the road. So yeah, it's, if you're into Outrun, have a look at Horizon Chase. And as Testicles points out, yeah, there are fucking tons and tons of debunkers. It's almost like Let's Players on YouTube, right? There are a dime a dozen. Speaking of car games, there's a really fun website, which I bet a bunch of you know, called NoClip, where they've taken geometry, mostly level geometry, from a bunch of games and stuffed it on a website and basically used a browser-based rendering engine, and you can then fly around in these levels, basically. Like, I know Super Mario Brothers 64 is in there, and another game that's in there is Need for Speed Most Wanted, the best version, which is, I think, 2006, I think? Or is it even older? Fuck, that game. But a friend of mine mentioned this to me and said that he was surprised how such an old game had such a big map. And I cannot overemphasize how good that game feels in terms of chasing, like, cop chases. Nothing comes close. Not even a little bit. Like, I'm betting it takes a bit of time to get the game running on a modern PC these days, with Windows having leaped a couple of versions since the game came out. But do yourself a favor. If you like pissing off virtual cops and smashing them to bits, like, that game it's something. Especially also because they did such a good job. So it was one of the first games where I also recall that the police chatter was quite, what's the right word? Not environmental, but responsive. So depending on how you drove your car and what you did, because you had a police scanner in your car, you'd hear something like, suspect just ran 2 civilian cars off the road or something. And so it responds to shit that you do, and they escalate the threat level really, really well. Like, it starts with regular police cruisers, then you get a souped-up version of those on your tail, then you get FBI, like, off-road SUVs or something, and finally you get, like, real proper big-ass vans after you. And if all of that still doesn't take you out, the captain of the police force, Sergeant Cross, shows up, and it is, God, that game is great. And it's also so fucking good because it has the dumbest fucking real live acting of, like, guys who just play tough, and it has to be this, like, fucking wheel crew. As it's so good because you can tell that it's filmed and meant to be real, and you're meant to feel it, but it is so over the top that it just comes off feeling really stupid and campy, but it works. Like, I cannot overemphasize how well the stupid cutscenes in that game comes together, because it's supposed to be real. Like, the lead villain is called Razor Callahan. Like, fucking that name, Razor fucking Callahan. And when you're starting out in the game, he walks up to the protagonist lady, who of course is a bit saucy and flirty and likes you, because of course she does. And he's like, my boy's gonna take out this guy. And then she's like, what's your boy got to do with this? And Razor says, I ain't racing this nobody. And it's poor. Go Hanks, I hear you. Like, Need for Speed Underground, 1 was perhaps my favorite with 2, because I thought the soundtrack was just a bit better with 1, but 2 was fucking solid. But Most Wanted, have you played it, Go Hanks? Tell me. I need to know. In the meantime, Let's play a bit of Goal with Big Nose's USA Adventure. But really, tell me if you played it, Go Hanks. Oh, that game. And that was a bit of goal with Big Nose's USA Adventure. LP Chip, you're making a solid push for Undercover. Although I will say, reading its Wikipedia entry, it is it's not. It is. Yeah, I guess I'll have to try it, right? Because what I like is reading that it's the same. It's Black Box Entertainment, and I believe at that time, similar to some other modern franchises like Assassin's Creed or even I think Call of Duty, they hand these franchises back and forth between different teams to make sure they can have an annual installment and have a development cycle of 2 years. And I'm pretty sure that Need for Speed was no exception at this point. So seeing that it was the same team that made Most Wanted also getting another go at it for Undercover is, of course, an interesting idea, but I'd say the reviews don't look awesome. It seems to be so apparently it was Black Box all the time. Okay, well, then there you go. So I was just looking up at the games before it, and they are not... I think what killed it for me, at least at that time, was I picked up Carbon right after I'd played Most Wanted, because I was like, hey, Most Wanted was a fucking banger of a video game. I should try Carbon because I really like the one, and Carbon was also quite the letdown. Looking at the Metacritic reviews, though, they are significantly better than Undercover. But I guess with Undercover, they leaned into the cop racing shit again, so maybe that's worth checking out, I suppose. I also really like Hot Pursuit. I think that's when... what are they called? That is when Black Box finally got to release it. Yeah, exactly. It was Criterion Games who do the Blackout games. Yeah, but this is the thing. So LP Chip writes and says, hey, the Undercover is similar to Burnout Paradise, but does it have the deformation of stuff? And I already know the answer. The answer is no, because they use licensed cars, and no car licensee wants to see their precious little product crumpled up like a Coke can. And that always bums me out. Like, the best you can get is a shattered windshield. And I feel like half the fun of doing destructive races is seeing things fly to pieces. And you can never have that in a proper Need for Speed game, which is sad. But I don't know. I really like the cop stuff, so maybe I should have a look at Undercover. And the other Need for Speed game I want to bring up was The Run, because I thought that was like... I remember reading about that, and they were like, hey, we have done... so while we're on the topic here, LPG's right, they do stuff with damage. I'm sure they do. I'm also convinced that it's no more than, again, a shattered windshield or a bit of a bump. Like, there is no mesh. What I want to hear is mesh deformation, and I sadly believe they don't have that, for good reason. But The Run, this was going to be like Gumball 3000. The whole idea was, instead of it always being you against 4 to 5 other players, like 6 people in a race, it would be a race of something like 30 or 40 cars across the USA, and each leg would be a new state or something. And I thought that was really cool, because, I mean, it's to me, it's much more exciting. This is one of the reasons I really like Outrun, is because when you start the game, you just have a lot of competitors ahead of you. I don't mind running on a closed circuit either, or even on a single stretch, but it's just, there's something more exciting when it's like, it goes over a longer period of time, and you're going from 30th place to 1st, rather than always 6th to 1st. And they talked this feature up quite a bit. I remember when they were promoting the game, it was like, oh, it's going to be so different, and race to race, and you'll keep climbing, and da-da-da-da-da. And then, come fucking release day, it had been chopped up into, again, you're starting a new race with 6 to 8 players, and you climb from 6th or 8th place, or whatever it was, to 1st every time. And it's like, okay, so it's exactly like all the other games then. It's just the only thing you've changed, quote-unquote, the meta. I'm supposed to sit here and think that I'm actually in a much longer race. But blah, that, yeah... Yeah. And LP Chip points out that if you want mesh deformation, you want BeamNG. Yeah, or just Burnout. You know, Burnout Paradise is the mesh deformation. Burnout Paradise is great. I think the thing that didn't work for me as well, sadly, in Burnout Paradise was this whole, the city is your landscape and the races are where you need to go. I feel it tired quicker, probably because the cop chases in NFS were just so much more fun. Anyway, that's enough race talk for now. We should play another request. An LP Chip is on the scene again and has requested Ryan Owahand with Sweet. And I can't say no to Ryan, and I also cannot say no to LP Chip, except about which is the better NF Speed game. That's Most Wanted very clearly. Take it away, Ryan. And that was Rein with Sweet. Thank you for requesting that, Elba Chip. That's a great song. I should add that to my wind down selection because it fits in there so damn neatly. Speaking of wind downs, it is time for the wind down. And I have had a lot of fun. This time, Plan Mix Play just worked a lot better than last time. But it is a working day tomorrow, and the caffeine is running out. So I'll have to, go to bed soon. But yeah, I just to wrap up the NFS undercover stuff, I'd be keen to try it. It's tricky with old games, right? Like you almost need to first look into, has anyone done any quality of life updates? Like, did anyone care enough about the video game to make it run okay on modern OSs? Because it's one thing to try and get a hold of an old game, because I looked up, as I wrote in the chat, I looked up Need for Speed Undercover. It used to be sold on Steam, it's now been taken off, and the fact that on Steam it's even listed as running on Vista means it may not even run on Windows 10 anymore. So kind of got to start by looking into if it's even working. Oh, okay, LP Chip says he did play it on Windows 10. Well, that's promising. I'll look into that. In the meantime, I'm going to kick the credits in a bit, and if it does crash, I will let the music play out, but effectively expect a bit of a, unceremonious, sudden ending to the whole show, because if it does crash, and the attached debugger points me to the problem, I would need to sit and think about that for a bit before I shut everything down and will not boot up again. So, at this point, let me say thank you everyone for listening in. I really appreciate everyone who is tuning in. I hope to do more shows in the future. It's not quite at the point where I feel comfortable trying to have a regular schedule because I need to figure out a bunch of other stuff. But I will leave you with the Funk Allegal Minimalistic Mix and probably Skits and Moog with Final Groove and Synth Sample after that. But one thing at a time. But again, thanks everyone for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Hope to be on Slay Radio again soon. I had a good time, and yes, I'll be Chip. If I remember, there's so many things I want to build into Plan Mix Play, but I wanted to do quite a bit of performance improving work, and it seems like a fair bit of what I've worked on has helped. And yeah, as Slagan writes, if there's a regular schedule, there's a shit ton of automation. I presume it's like setting up the relays and all that fun stuff. But there'll be time for that plenty. So I'm going to, before the chat gets away, because this is your last time to say anything in the chat before I activate the end credits, so I'm going to type, thank you all for listening in. Now is your chance to say something, because in a minute or so this chat is going to go away, and if it stops you will have known that there was a crash. So let me line this up. Yes, song here. So again, take it out, the Funk with Allegal Minimalistic Mix, and hopefully the credits will kick in soon after. Thanks everybody, have a wonderful Sunday evening, and I will see you in the next show.